Hi guys, I'm Ben and welcome to Motivation to Invest. Our mission is to motivate you to invest for your financial freedom. Whether that means escaping the 9-to-5 drudgery or just improving your quality of life, I'm here to help you by providing you with valuable investing tips and strategies. Reading is one of the greatest ways to compound knowledge and is wildly popular with some of the most successful people in history. From the world's greatest investor and billionaire Warren Buffett.
Read. I probably read 5 to 6 hours a day. I don't read as fast now as when I was younger, but I read 5 daily newspapers. I read a fair number of magazines. I read 10Ks. I read annual reports, and I read a lot of other things too. So I've always enjoyed reading.
To Bill Gates.
If you read enough, there's a similarity between things that make it easy because this thing is like this other thing.
And even Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Imagine you read 1 hour a day about history. How much you will learn after 365 hours.
Now, not everybody enjoys reading, and it can be quite difficult for some. However, if you can commit yourself to reading just a few pages, a few times a week or even daily, then the knowledge you will accumulate will be incredible. Now, many of the books that I speak about in this video are available in audio format and also as part of a video summary online. So you be sure to check that out if you're really against reading. The average CEO reads 52 books a year. Like, if you look at the habits of the most successful people, reading is one thing which they have in common. In this video, I'm going to reveal my top 5 books for investing. Now, 2 of the books on this list are the same as on the previous list, and that's because I just really think they deserve to be on both lists. They're just so highly regarded in that sense. Without further ado, let's dive in. Number 5 is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, this is an amazing book which will truly change your mindset on investing and on financial education in general. The premise of the book follows a young Robert Kiyosaki and his father, who was poor dad, and also his friend's father, who was rich dad. Now, his father, who was poor dad, actually followed all society's rules which are put out for him. He went to university, he became a teacher, works in a steady, secure job, does all the right things, but he still wasn't wealthy. Whereas his friend's dad, he dropped out of school early, didn't go to college, didn't go to university, and he was very wealthy. So in the book, Robert reveals basically the lessons which his friend's rich dad was teaching to his friend in order to take those lessons and apply it to his own life, and obviously became a millionaire as we know it today. So it will change your mindset on how the rich earn money and how the poor earn money. What the rich do is they set up a business, the business works for money, then they get the money and they invest the money either back into the business or into different investments. Whereas what poor people do is the money comes in and then it flows straight out on liabilities, expenses, which are above their financial means. Now, you might see a rich person driving around in a Rolls Royce, but the way Robert Kiyosaki explains this is his investments have probably paid for that, which is completely different to someone who's worked and then bought it outright, because then it's a liability, you see. So he talks about the difference between liabilities and assets, and the fact that most people think their house is an asset, when in fact, for most, unless you're renting it, it's a liability. Because a liability is something which you have to pay out. An asset is something which can pay you. So if your house is not rented out and you're living in a 4-bedroom house, it's costing you money. It's costing you mortgage, council tax, all these other taxes and charges, and all your capital is trapped inside this house. So it's a liability. Some people even think their car's an asset. That's definitely a liability as it loses its value yearly. He also explains the cash flow quadrant and basically the different types of professions and jobs and the different levels in the financial game. So you can start off as an employee where you work for money, and then you can start off as then you can go to say self-employed where you own a job. Then you can go to business owner where you own a business, and then finally you can go to an investor where you invested in businesses and your money is now working for you. So really, as an investor is where you want to get to, and obviously that's why I made this channel, Motivation to Invest, because our goal is to motivate you and just reveal all this information which is out there, which just wasn't taught in school. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, it will change your mindset on investing and really just get your head in the game so you can see the truth of how society works and make it work the best for you. Coming in at number 4 is One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. Now, Peter Lynch is one of the most successful mutual fund managers of all time. As manager at Fidelity Investments, Peter Lynch returned over 29% over a period greater than 10 years. He beat the stock market, which many say is impossible, and very few can do it, but he proved it's possible. And he also believes that the average investor or the amateur investor has many traits and advantages over the institutional professional investors. And in the book, he goes to explain all these advantages people like you may have as you go about your day-to-day life. As we're an investing channel, I'm going to detail 4 takeaways from this book, which are really interesting, and it shows why you can beat the stock market. The first takeaway is mediocrity is the safest plan for large institutions. Now, there's a phrase that says, no one ever got fired for investing into IBM. IBM is a classic blue chip stock. And even if it may not get tremendous growth, and even if it gets negative earnings, no mutual fund manager will get fired for investing in IBM. However, if they invest in more of a risky business or an unheard of business or a not established business, such as Pineapple Maui Co., just sounds very strange, very crazy, then what they'll find is if that investment doesn't do well, they will get chopped, they will get fired, because the investors will say, what the hell is this company you're investing in? I've never heard of it. Another takeaway from the book is the fact that consumers such as you and me have a more valuable insight and a unique insight on which are the best companies to invest in. For example, say you use Netflix regularly all the time. You notice all your other friends use Netflix all the time. Everyone you speak to uses Netflix all the time. And you independently look and say, well, actually, everyone's sold all their DVD players, VHS players. Netflix may be a good stock. Now, that's a little creative reason for you to further investigate that company. You don't invest purely based on that reason, but it just gives you a little insight. Usually this can be specific to your interests. So, say for example, someone is into hobby crafts and they use this website called Etsy. Now, I'd never used this Etsy website before. I'd not really heard of it, but it's massive. A friend of mine, she made hobbycraft items and she was selling them on there. She was making about £2,000, £3,000 a week selling items on there. And I thought to myself, okay, well, how come I've never heard of this business? After researching it, it turned out that that business was a great investment. So I put some money into that investment, and it's doing extremely well. It's got fantastic earnings. It's got low debt. It's just a great business all round. So, but the spark of the idea to invest in that business came from a friend who used the products and services. It can work specific to your industry. Like if someone's a doctor or if someone's a mechanic, they might know the specific type of oil or a specific type of chemical, which they know is number one. They know they would never use any other type of oil or any other type of chemical. Now, the average person or the stock market broker on Wall Street, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know what type of oil the mechanic uses. But the mechanic he knows that all mechanics use this one type of oil. So that could be a little spark for him to research that company further and find out, well, actually, this company they're the number one for this type of mechanic oil. They've got that whole market boxed off. And that could be a great investment. So it's just interesting to look at your habits, your spending habits, look at what products you like. And as Peter Lynch says, chances are, if you like the product, you may like the stock. Another insight from the book is he explains 6 different stock investment categories, as he states that each stock investment is different. For example, there are slow growers. These are in established, well-formed industries, and they're gigantic companies which are not growing much in size. These are sort of stable investments. They'll grow maybe 5%, 10%, very, very steady growth. Then you've got fast growers. An example of a previous fast grower was Amazon. These were growing quick. They were a fast bubbling enterprise, obviously with the power of the internet. And a $1,000 investment in them back in their IPO in 1997 would have got you over $300,000 today. So that is a fast grower. They were getting over 20%, 30% return on investment each and every year. They were really, really moving fast and expanding. Another example would have been Facebook 10 years ago. The question you should always ask with fast growers is, can they keep expanding at the same rate? Because what you'll find is you'll think, okay, 5 years have gone by, they've expanded rapidly, they're giving people 50% return a year. Can they keep going? And some people believe they can, and they'll invest, and the growth slows down because they've captured the market, or competitors have arose in the market, or it will carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on. And then the stock price doesn't seem so high after all. So it's just interesting to look at these different types of companies. You've also got cyclicals. So these are companies based on annual or biannual cycles. So for example, the automotive industry is years where demand peaks and then years when demand just drops due to cost of labor, cost of parts, and it goes up and down. So that's a cyclical industry. You've also got turnarounds. Now turnarounds are companies which are going through temporary upset. Now the key word there is temporary upset. If a company is literally on its knees and you know from your research that it's not going to survive, like it's very unlikely that it will survive, then it'd be best to just avoid that investment and not assume that just because its share price is very low and it has been high, that its share price will go back up, because that's not necessarily true. Just because a share price drops doesn't mean it will go back up. However, if you can spot a good turnaround company which is just going through some temporary hardship, they can be fantastic investments. For example, Cambridge Analytica scandal at Facebook. Now, that caused the share price to drop temporarily. Like, from researching Facebook and researching numbers, you know that they've got great numbers, they've got great figures, it's great business. This little scandal is not going to put them out of business. But it caused the share price to drop, and then that could be a little investment. Obviously, you've got more extreme versions of that. For example, the cruise line industry at the moment is on its knees due to the global issue, which I won't go into details on. But yeah, cruise line stock is very, very cheap now. So a risk for some people could be investing into that stock and hope that it's a turnaround stock. So for example, Carnival Cruise Lines, their stock was really rock bottom after the previous global issue. And a Saudi Arabian fund invested into them, and then their stock shot up by 40% within 3-4 days. So for that Saudi Arabian company, that's a great turnaround. Like, they've already made 40%, and obviously they'll probably continue to hold for at least until the global issue is completely over. So yeah, that's just a couple of examples of turnaround industries, turnaround companies. They're great ones to look for, but always remember to ask, is this a temporary upset or is this a fundamental problem with the business? Number 3 on my list is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This was published back in 1937, but the messages in it are still true today and will still be true in 100 years from now. It basically talks about the power of the mind and the fact that we can manifest anything in our lives simply by visualizing it and removing any self-limiting beliefs regarding what we wish to achieve. I think the best quote to summarize this book is by the great Henry Ford. And he states, "Those who believe they can and those who believe they can't are both usually right." Number 2 on my list is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Now, this is a really interesting one, which will also change your mindset on working and on productivity. So this is quite a practical book, and it gives you insight into the fact that you can work 4 hours a week, 7 hours a week, and still get more done or the same amount done as someone that works 40 hours a week. So the idea in this book is he works 4 hours a week and he earns about £50,000 a month or $50,000 a month. And it shows basically various methods and tactics which he uses in order to achieve that. So it covers everything from negotiating with your boss so you can work remotely. Because then if you can work remotely, it allows you to be more in control of your time, and thus you can implement various techniques and tactics to improve your productivity. So you might have heard of the 80-20 rule. 80% of our value, which we get from certain situations, is achieved by 20% of our actions. I was skeptical of this theory previously, but looking at certain situations, you can see it's just very, very common. For example, if you look at physical exercise in the gym, 80% of my probably physical results would be achieved by probably 2 workouts. For example, leg day, where I'd be doing squats, which is obviously working your largest muscle groups, and then back day, which I'd be doing deadlifts, which I'm working almost every muscle group, including obviously my back. So that will be producing probably 80% of my physical results. You also see it in sales offices. So say, for example, someone's in sales and they view the various channels which they're getting their leads from. So they might have Instagram, Facebook, email, phone, and they look at the various channels. And what they might find is they might be spending equal amount of time on each channel. However, they're getting 80% of their clients through Instagram. So really, if they understand that wait a minute, we're spending 5 days, we're spending 1 day in each platform, but we're getting 80% of our customers through Instagram. So if they instead just quadruple down on Instagram and even just completely just ignore the others, or even really just scale them down, then they'll find the results increase massively, and thus they can accomplish more of a certain task in a short space of time. So if they're doing 2 days fully on Instagram advertising, they will get more leads than if they were doing 5 days on Instagram, Facebook, email, phone, trying everything, because they've understood the 80-20 rule for their specific situation. So it's real powerful stuff. He also talks about batching emails. So instead of wasting time checking your email 2, 3, 4 times a day, you should only check it potentially once a day or even just once a week, and schedule out any unnecessary questions which people may ask you, have automated responses set up. He also speaks about outsourcing, so how you can outsource using websites such as Fiverr, where you can basically pay someone in India to do admin work for you, to do graphic design for you, do web design for you at very, very low prices. So the idea behind the book is basically it's not to make you a millionaire, it's to outsource a lot of your work, become more productive, and thus you have time and money, which is true wealth in any sense. So yeah, interesting read there. 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. Number 1 is Awaken the Giant by Tony Robbins. Now, this is an incredible book, and one that is truly life-changing. Now, regardless of your opinion of Tony Robbins, you need to give this book a chance. It covers so many different areas which you'll just be astonished. Like, it literally resets your life. The main premise of the book is to unlock your true power by removing self-limiting beliefs and certain negative, disempowering emotional attachments to situations. So for example, someone might have a negative emotional attachment to, say, going to the gym. Therefore, as the mind seeks pain and pleasure, it will avoid the gym. When logically you know that you should be going to the gym and you should be keeping healthy. The idea is to reset that pain and pleasure connection so you can associate pleasure with things which you know you need to do and which are going to help you to move towards your goals, and you associate pain with things which you know are negative and unhealthy or just toxic for you, your mind, your body, or your soul. So many people tend to self-sabotage themselves before the world stops them. Usually the thing that is holding most people back is that little voice in their head. The little voice that says, you can't do that. You can't get that promotion. You can't get that relationship. You can't do this. You can't achieve the next level. And having that negativity, that can't mindset, will hold you back in a personal situation. Because if there's any goal you want to achieve and you have that voice holding you back, you won't even try. You will not even try. So this book is really about setting your goals, setting your vision, and then literally rewiring your brain to associate pain and pleasure with what you need to do to succeed. So in the book, he also speaks about certain neural highways or roads which we have between the pain and pleasure and the specific situations. So if someone's a very cynical, a very sad person, they feel sad, they constantly keep reinforcing that message into their mind. Oh, I'm sad, I'm depressed. Like if they're constantly looking at the negatives, the mind will focus on the negatives. Thus, they have a highway to sadness in terms of neural brain connections, but they have a dirt road to happiness. So they wonder why they're not happy. They're not constantly reinforcing that positivity daily, which is what needs to be done to be in a constant state of euphoria and also to be able to change your emotional state quick. Because everyone gets angry, everyone gets sad, everyone has these moments, but it's how long do you stay in that state for? Like, that's what depression is. Depression is someone staying in that state for a very long and prolonged period of time. Whereas if you can change your emotional state fast, then you know you're angry for a second and you can just change it. And you can change it. And there's even in the book, there's even a 14-day challenge, which I tried, and it honestly works wonders, where basically you've got to challenge yourself to not think a negative thought for longer than 10 seconds over the next, say, 14 days. So as soon as something negative comes into your mind or something disempowering, which you know you cannot control, like say for example it's a cloudy day and you want to moan about the weather, instead when that comes into your mind, be grateful. Think of gratitude. So that's an emotional state changer. So rather than reinforcing that negativity, you change your emotional state. So you say, okay, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be alive. I opened the 2 best gifts this morning and they were my eyes. That sort of reinforcing mindset of that positivity can really, really help you along the way. Now there's a great quote which summarizes this book. Those who think they can and those who think they can't are both usually right. That quote's by Henry Ford, who created the first ever production motor vehicle. So this book is split into 5 parts: emotional mastery, physical mastery, relationship mastery, financial mastery, and time mastery. The idea behind it is really to define and achieve in all those different areas. And it starts with, of course, controlling your emotional reactions to situations. And then obviously it goes on to using that in a physical sense, using that in relationships, using that to grow your finances and grow your wealth, and then using that also to manage your time. So the power is all in our minds, and it's pretty obvious when you read this book. So that's the list. Now, Warren Buffett says, investing in yourself is one of the greatest investments you can make. So even just reading the 5 books I mentioned previously will definitely compound your knowledge and be a great investment into yourself. You can also find free audio versions of these books. Just go onto YouTube and search the book's name and audiobook. And what you'll do is you'll find it'll come up with a free audio and you can just listen to the book, if that's more your thing, rather than actual reading. You can still get that knowledge in a different way. You can also binge watch investing videos on this channel to really build up that knowledge and those practical investing skills. I would love to know your thoughts on the books mentioned previously, if you've read them, what you think of them, and also any other books which you recommend on self-improvement and success. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, smash that like button, and definitely subscribe. See you next time.